Okay, we're live. We're ready to get started. So yesterday, I ended up rushing through the last Gemara. So I just want to go over it again because we really rushed through it much too quickly. So the Gemara says, and it was on Daf Tesvav Amud Beis, if someone said, if someone tells his wife, there's an Isser Hana for me to be Mishamashu, the Neder Schal. So the Gemara asked, he has a shibud midaraisa to provide her with tashmish. And for the Gemara, yes, he does have a shibud midaraisa, but it's speaking he cannot make a neder that's going to directly say, I'm going to violate the shibud. But he could make a neder that has nothing to do with the shibud that will then indirectly prevent him from fulfilling the shibud. So he could circumvent the shibud by saying, I'm not answering myself to you, I'm a shubba to you. But what I am doing is the hana that I'm going to have from you, I'm answering upon me. Once I answer that upon me, that I could do, I have no shibud to have enough from you, so I could answer that. Once I answer that, now so now he's not allowed to do tashmish anymore. So even though there's a shibud, but there's an isra upon him, and like the Gemara is going to say in a moment, in order for him to be mekayim shibud, we're not going to force him to go and violate an isra. Marty, thank you so much. And the Gemara brings an example of such halacha. Damar of Kahana, in the flip side, Tashmish Yalecha. What if she said that my tashmish should be usher on you? You force her to do tashmish because she's meshubit. She doesn't have a right to usher something that that's meshubit to her husband. But if she said if she didn't usher her giving tashmish to her husband, but she asked it upon herself, but not a tashmish, so then the issue is chal, and then usher, and once it's chal, now we're not going to force her to do an isser in order to be mekayim or shibud. She'ein machil in loy adam davar ha'asher loy. We're not going to actively feed somebody something that's usher to them. And let's see the Ran inside. The Ran says, "V'hamin atayah mishabed la." In time effect the Ran. Umay kasha. What is the Gemara's kasha? V'amrinu perek avapi the kainamais kedushas haguf ninu umavkiyim udei shibud. Even if there's a shibud here, we already said that the koinam will break a shibud. Yesh loymar emphataran that this is a shibud on steroids. Just like the Gemara says in Ksubis that there's a special strength put into the shibud that will not allow it to be evaporated with a neder. So too the shibud that he asked to her is the same way. Umar Farkinon, and how does our Gemara answer this question? How does our Gemara get around this problem? I'm sorry?
What's the shibud about that he has to give her?
Yeah.
The same way, shibud.
And she has a shibud to him as well. She has a shibud to him to give him.
So she can.
So they're both an enhanced shibud.
And that's why she can ask her for the coin.
Correct. So the Gemara answers, it's ba'omer hanas tashmishach alai. So we're circumventing the problem. Kloimar, the ida aser gufei iluya, if he was directly answering what he's mishubit to her for, hachanamid lematzi of it, he can't do it. The midaraisa mishabedla. There's a deraisa to kashibud for him to give her tashmish. And therefore, by him trying to answer it, he's answering something, he's trying to answer something that's not even his. It's mishubit to her. It's like answering somebody else's item on somebody else. That you don't have the power to do. Here, he circumvented the problem. In the Omer Hanas Tashmishach Alai Askina, it's speaking where he said, the Hana of your Tashmish I'm answering to me. He's answering it to himself. A person can answer himself from benefiting from something. Uchet Rav Kahana, just like Rav Kahana illustrated in the flip side case, the Omar Sha'ishi Yechoyle Lesser Anos Tashmish by Lalel. She can't answer her tashmish to her husband because there's a shibud there, but she could answer the hana that she'll have from her husband. The chivin the nadra mishkachas rafka. Now the neder sort of found a place to land. Therefore, chayil it will land. Once it lands, indirectly now it's causing that she cannot fulfill her shibud, or in this case, where he cannot fulfill his shibud, umemela paka shibud. So, Frank, ran another problem. The hahai nidra derabadanu. We've already established that the nedarim in this Mishnah are not really valid midoraisa because they're a neder and a davar shein by mamish. The hanos tashmish lesh by mamasha. There's no object of tashmish, so it's you're answering something that doesn't have mamashas, and there is no chiyah, there's no shvu deraisa, there's only shvu derabanan. So what the Ran's getting at is, how could you say that the rabbanan are going to tell someone to ignore a shibud that he has midoraisa? You can't say that this Mishnah is referring to a case where he was answering a davar sheish b'mamish, meaning her guf. You cannot say that that's prat in the Mishnah, because the hadumya, the shani yosha and shani medaber katanila, the earlier cases in the Mishnah that this case is similar to are cases of shani yosha and shani medaber. And on Amar Aleph, the Gemara said that how does this neder work? It's not a proper expression of a neder. It works midrabanan. So if this whole thing is midrabanan, how could you suggest that the rabbanan say it's also for him to be mekayim is chiyavayna? The chiyavayna midrabanan be'amahu heichi chayil nidra delay. How could his neder be chal? The less say ala midrabanan, it's only midrabanan be'alma lafkui mitzvahs oinu mitzvahs period for Revya. How is that justified? Yeshlomo Zaktiran, it is justified. Because the kivan the nidra miyah chayil, since the nether is chal, memela pakilu hanach mitzvahs. It's not a direct. The rabbanon aren't directly uprooting a mitzvah. They're saying there's an issue here. Agavarcha, it's going to cause that he can't fulfill the mitzvah. That does work because we know there's a rule. The chachamim masnin lakar davim in Torah b'shev al tasha, b'shev al tasa. So the chachamim do have the koyach to be oiker a mitzvah of the Torah when they're telling you not to act. When they're telling you to act, that's something they wouldn't do. They wouldn't tell you to act negative the Torah. But when they're telling you not to act and then preventing you from being mekayim, a chiv in the Torah, that they will do.
My question is, though, the other side of the vice, they have a reason why they want to enact something to do a shaval tasim. Do zug chazor. Se is a neder drabunim.
I want to stop you right there. The Rabbanan didn't just say it's a good neder for fun. They saw a reason to need to make that into a good neder. Why did they make it a good neder? Because they're afraid someone will make a neder daraisa. Why are there issue in Rabbanan? To a daraisa. If we're going to be matter this, we're afraid you're going to be matter that. So exactly what the cheshbon on this particular xer was, I don't know. But we know that it's also in Rabbanan. I hear, but if a zoy, so we're not discussing here and now. We're not discussing there why they decided that they wanted to make this also. The pashtus is because if we say that this nether you don't have to worry about all, people might come to be over real nadar. So once they said that, so then it's going to be oikad of nadar. Let's go back. I didn't even start today's block. We'll discuss after. The chiyamar hanos tashmishach. What do I don't understand? There's a mitzvah here of doing tashmish, and we know mitzvahs lav lehenisnit. The chiyamar hanos tashmishach amay mitzvah, but mitzvahs lav lehenisnit. Yesh loymar efshek emizogim zaktaran. The chiyaminon mitzvahs lav lehenisnit nu hanamili daimar shen kiyum mitzvah choshev hana. For instance, if I let you use my lulav and esrog to shake to be mekayim the mitzvah, even though you're mudar enough for me, you're still allowed to, because the fact that you're mekayim the mitzvah is not considered a hana that would be prohibited. But if while you're mekayim the mitzvah, in the process of the mekayim the mitzvah, there's also a physical enjoyment, that's not called hanos mitzvah, and there avada hana mikri. So here, sure the bia is a mitzvah, but he's having physical pleasure during the mitzvah, that's called the hana that would be nesar. It's like if you're eating matzah. If you're eating matzah to be mekayim the mitzvah of achilas matzah, the eating of the matzah for sure is a hana, because besides the mitzvah, there's also the physical hana. What if you make a neder? I'm not going to have enough from this spring. Imagine you say, I'm not going to have enough from the Arizal's mikveh. So the halach is toil by the Moshe Shalom. On a freezing cold day, you're allowed to go into the Arizal's mikveh because there's no hana. It's only the mitzvah of the tefillah. If you spend the day going through the tzvas basic flourish and you're sweating, and especially as you come up the hill, you're all the way at the bottom, you walk all the way up the hill and you're sweating bullets, and then you go into Arizal's mikveh, that would be considered having hana, because besides the fact that you're toveling, you're cooling off. So that hana isn't actionable. That hana wouldn't become also with the isra hana. How can you say there's no hana? There's a no hana of shaking a little bit geschmack, right? So it means it's not a type of hana that would be necessary with an isra hana. That's all that the Gemara is saying. So let me ask you a Zak question. What if someone is mudar enough from his friend, and then he needs a sefer, and his friend has that sefer? Are you allowed to borrow that sefer from your friend? Is that a hana? Talmud Torah. So everybody learns that the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, a chelik of the mitzvah is having hana, not from the mitzvah. You're supposed to have like a shemach learning. The meaning of Talmud Torah is not to, oh yeah, I really hate to learn, I'll force myself. No. Talmud Torah, the definition of Talmud Torah is to have a geschmack in learning. So that's also called a hanas agufal for most shitas. And there's actually a shaila. I'm sorry. No, it would be also. It would be also to borrow a sefer. No, it's like the hana that you have during bia. It's a mitzvah. It's part of the mitzvah, but there's another.
We know because you can't do it on Tisha B'av. No, you can't learn on Tisha B'av. You can't learn on Tisha B'av. So there's hana. There's simcha.
You can do Tisha B'av Gemaras. You can do Tisha B'av Gemaras.
Right, specifically because those don't bring you hana. They don't bring you simcha.
So most people learn that there would be isra hana.
No, by B is not part of it. Learning, that's part of
I mean, since the simcha is part of, but lamaisa there's a physical hana. You're supposed to have hana. You're supposed to enjoy. You're supposed to enjoy learning. So every other mitzvah, the reason why the Gemara says mitzvah lav lahanis nitnu is because the mitzvahs weren't given for our pleasure; they're given for our avdus, because we're being avdei Hashem. But that's not how the Rebbe Shalom wants us to learn. By the learning, Hashem wants to enjoy. Hashem wants us to enjoy the learning as much as we enjoy the tashmish. He wants to have a geschmack in it. That's a chelik of understand of the learning. It's a chelik of the mitzvah itself. What? I hear. Okay. Zok the Heilig Gemara. So it takes us to the next Gemara. We're going back into Shvua. So we learned cases just recently, the last Mishnah, about Shvua, about Neder. Now we're going to learn the parallel of these same Isurim by Shvua. So someone said Shvua she'eni yoshan. So last Mishnah was Koinim she'ani yoshan. Now we're saying Shvua she'eni yoshan. And we learned already you could swear on the davar she'eni mamish. So this will be a deraisa de Shvua. Or she'eni medaber, or she'eni mahalach, osir, and that will be osir midaraisa.
The word when we say koinim she'ani yoshan, touch every word.
Koinim she'ani. Koinim she'ani yoshan. So it should be a carbon. My sleep should be osir to me like a carbon.
Because shvia, you don't have to.
I'm not answering your question. No, he said Shvua she'eni yoshan. I'm swearing that I won't sleep. That's right. So Shvua she'eni yoshan, Shvua she'eni medaber, or she'eni mahalach osir. Now what about carbon lo yoichala? Someone said carbon lo yoichala. So right off the bat, if you remember in the last Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda said that if it's not something that's be'etzem iser, like pigel or noisor, if it's just like an imra or a carbon, you have to have the chafadim. You have to say ki carbon, right? So here the Mishnah is giving an example where you didn't say ki carbon. So obviously this Mishnah is not going to be consistent with Rabbi Yehuda.
Because the word emir doesn't mean a carbon; it means a sheep. So you have to say
No, Rabbi Kiva says even if you said carbon, carbon loy oichalach, ha carbon sha'oichalach, or loy carbon loy oichalach, mutter. All these cases are going to be mutter. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Let's see the Ran. I mean, carbon loy oichalach, ha carbon sha'oichalach, lo carbon loy oichalach mutter mishum dechi amar carbon loy oichalach. When you said carbon loy oichalach, I spoke too soon. Even Rabbi Yehuda would agree to this. We're saying that it's mutter, right? So I was wrong what I said a moment ago. Rabbi Yehuda is going to get involved in the Gemara in a minute, but it's not where I said it, so I apologize. So the Ran says mishum dechi amar carbon loy oichalach. In the case where you said carbon loy oichalach, so the Ran's going to go through the three cases of the carbon and explain them. So the first case was carbon loy oichalach. When you said carbon loy oichalach, it doesn't mean anything. The Chiyama carbon loy oichalach, Dr. Ran, I amrinon the bechaye carbon mishtaba. If you describe that what he means to say is carbon, I'm swearing in the name of a carbon, which doesn't mean anything. You swear in the name of Hashem, not in the name of the carbon. So the b'chaya carbon mishtaba shari, it'll be mutter. The carbon lav bar ishtabueh. Carbon is not something you swear on. And even if you want to interpret his words as meaning, the carbon yehei, mashe loy oichal mishalach amar, what I don't eat from you should become a carbon, nami shari, that's also mutter. The loy shavi is the carbon, elama shelo yoichal. He's only saying that what I'm not going to eat should be also to me like a carbon. A carbon, so period. So that was the first expression that the Ran explains. Any way you want to approach it, it wouldn't mean iser. The next case in the Mishnah was ha carbon she'oichalach. So ha carbon she'oichalach nami shari. That's also not a valid neder or shvua. The chai carbon ka'amar, as we already learned in the last Gemara, the Gemara wanted to know why this case of ha carbon she'oichalach is not a good neder. And the Gemara said, because when you say ha carbon she'oichalach, it means you're swearing in the name of a carbon, and the Ovid Inish the Mishtabavei, and that's not any type of an expression of a shvua. The near be'enai zokteran the ha carbon askinon uchidechasivna. When we had the Gemara before that was comparing this nusach, which is not a nusach of iser, to carbon, to lick carbon oichalach, the Gemara explained that if you say ha carbon, that for sure means you're swearing in the life of the carbon, which is not a good shvua. In fact, the same thing would apply if you were making a shvua rather than another. You said ha shvua, the tana, the mutter, the carbon katani, the b'shvua aser. I'm sorry. The chavasa b'shvua ha shvua, the tana, the mutter is b'carbon katani if he swore on the carbon. The b'shvua aser. So we're going to see soon. I think in the next Mishnah we're going to see ha shvua sha'oichalach, loy shvua loyalach will be aser. So the kavasa b'shvua, you said ha shvua, the tana, the mutter b'carbon katani the b'shvua aser. In a parallel case, when you said ha shvua, it would be aser. If you said ha carbon, it means I'm swearing in the life of a carbon. But if you say ha shvua, then it would be a good shvua, and we'll see that shortly in the next Mishnah. The lekala meimar the ha carbon gasina. You cannot say Zaktiran that it's ha carbon one word rather than two words ha carbon. The Tana v'pirkin deloyel, because we actually learned in the last Mishnah the ha carbon also the Reb Meir, and that's where the Gemara asked what's the difference between ha carbon and ha carbon, and the Gemara said when you say ha carbon you're swearing in the life of the carbon. And that's why in our Mishnah it's going to be mutter. The hechit nan hachadeshari. If here the Mishnah's word was ha carbon and not two separate words ha carbon, why is it mutter here yet mentioned as aser in the last Mishnah? The masnizin Reb Meir ukimna la b'gemar. We still down the Gemara like Reb Meir, where you say it should the carbon yehei lefichach it's aser. Elavada kida amran, you have to say that ha carbon is a separate word. Okay, now the Ran is approaching the last nusach of the Mishnah. Loy carbon, loy oichalach is mutter. So let's see. Loy carbon, or loy carbon, loy oichalach, nami shari is also mutter. So the carbon, loy oichalach, nami shari. The chivan de belamit psucha kamar. So now the Ran tells us the carbon was with a lamet, it was a la carbon. We we explained it, we interpreted it as loy carbon mashma. Loy carbon, it's not going to be a carbon. Loy echala. The lekala meimar, the mechlala. If you say loy carbon, loy echala, so then you should make a dik. What's not a carbon? What I'm not eating. Mashma, that what I am eating should be a carbon. The mashma yoichel yeh carbon. That you're not going to say because the maslizin Reb Meir kimnala. We've already said that this Mishnah is going according to Reb Meir, and according to Reb Meir halesle mechlalav ata shemei. So this is how the Ram explains every individual case in the Mishnah why it's going to be wanted. Zok tahela gemar mani masnisin. Who is this Mishnah consistent with? Zok gemar Reb Meir. It must be Reb Meir. The Rabbi Yehuda loy shani loy carbon, loy shani loy ha carbon. It doesn't make a difference what you said. It would be butter. The only thing that wouldn't work would be also would be ki carbon. Ema sefer. Let's see the sefer. Le carbon lo eichalach is mutter. Frek the Gemara batnan le carbon lo eichalach. Reb Meir holds it's aser. The Amar Rab Abba Nasik Omer le carbon yehei lefichach lo eichalach. So this will be the fourth time we learned this Rab Abba in the last week. Dr. Merlakasha. Had Amar la carbon. Had Amar loy la carbon. So in our Mishnah, you said loy la carbon, and therefore the loy have a carbon cover, it's not going to be a carbon. Where Reb Meir said it's aser is when he said la carbon, where we dash on la carbon yehei, and therefore it's going to be aser. So there's actually a shaila if it actually says the loy, or if it's just the difference between the pasach and he said la carbon, then you say loy la carbon, and it's going to be mutter. And you said lamed with a shal li carbon, then you say like Reb Abba says that la carbon yehei, therefore it's going to be aser. So these are very like technical mishnayos. Next, Shvua loy eichalach. If someone said Shvua loy eichalach, or ha Shvua she'eichalach, or loy Shvua loy eichalach aser. So let's analyze these expressions. Zok the Heilige Ram. The Ram's going to start getting way ahead of the Gemara, so we're going to have to be flipping back and forth. Zok the Heilige Ram. Shavua loy eichalach. That was the first case. Ha Shavua she'eichalach, which was the second case. And the Shavua loy eichalach is aser. Why? Mishum the Shavua loy eichalach. Shavua loy eichalach mashma b'Shavua with an iser of a Shavua loy eichalach. I'm not going to eat from you. That's the first case of the Mishnah. Now, what about the second case of the Mishnah? Ha Shavua she'eichalach. The ha Shavua she'eichalach hachi mashma. This is how we would interpret it. The lekala frushe lishna the chai Shavua ka'amar kidarmin and chai carbon. You cannot interpret this like we did the Mishnah. And earlier the Ran said the same lotion of ha carbon, which doesn't work. Ha Shavua does work. Why? Why don't you say the same thing? I'm swearing in the life of a carbon, which doesn't work. So here I'm swearing in the life of a Shvua, which is something that that doesn't work, or you only can swear in the name of Hashem. Zoktaran, here you won't say that. You know why? No one speaks that way. No one, when they say ha-shvua, means to swear in the name of a shvua. Someone might mistakenly swear in the name of a carbon, but no one's going to swear in the name of a shvua. So therefore, let me just finish around. So therefore, you cannot interpret it that way, and therefore you'll say it should be asher b'shvua she'eichalach what I eat. Sorry, what you say?
Shvua doesn't have a lie.
That's right. Well, the shvua lo yoichel. Now the last case of the Mishnah is lo shvua lo yoichelach. Nami afilu belamed pesucha. Even if you said last shvua lo yoichelach, which would mean lo shvua lo yoichelach, it would still be aser. The afal gav the lamed pesucha loy mashma. Even though the lamed pesucha is mashma loy, and in fact in our Mishnah we're literally a loy. Umaslisin Rabbi Meir, and our Mishnah is going into according to Rabbi Meir, the less lay michlalavata shmeihin, that you don't say michlalavata shmeihin. So you can't be medayik loy shvua loy oichalach. Ha, what I am eating should be aser b'shvua, because according to Rabbi Meir that mechanism doesn't work. So why is it aser over here? Afilu hachizak tiran b'shvua aser, it will be aser b'shvua. V'nir be'enai. Why do I think it's aser? Zah the heilig around. The Hainu Taima, the reason why it's also is Mishum, the Maskinon Besoy Perik Shvuas Eidus. At the end of Shvuas Perik Shvuas Eidus, the Gemara came out. The Chilas Leiler Rav Meir, a very important halacha. The Chilas Leiler Rav Meir, Mechlal Avata Shemayahin. Where does Rav Meir say, I disagree with the concept of Mechlal Avata Shemayahin? Hanimili B'Mamana. That only applies when there's a Shaila of Dinim Mamanis. Inami B'Isura de Isbe Mamana. Or by an Isser that also impacts Mamana. And we're going to soon see that Nedarim fit into that category. It's an Isser that impacts Mamana. Aval B'Isura Greda, but by a regular Isser Shvua, Islay. So you might ask, why is a Neder considered a Shvua that's an Isser on Mamana? Because in the Nedarim, Isura, the Isbe Mamana Ninu. You know why? Mishum D'lo Mishkachas Buhu V'lo Cheptza. There's no way to have a Neder unless there's a Cheptza being Aser. So that's Monis. You're Asering a Cheptza. The Ha'edin Chalon Al Dover Shein B'Mamet. So Neder would be subject to the restriction of requiring a T'nai couple because you will not say Michlala Vata Shemayahin. Avo Shavuos Einon Elo Isura Greda. Shavuos are a regular Isser. Shehuchal Begufay that prohibits you from doing something. The Chivin the Isura Greda Ninu, since they're just a regular Isser that does not involve moment at all. Afilu Rav Meir Moida Damrinu Behu Michlala Vata Shemayahin. So this is a very important side of the Ran. When do you say the Rav Meir doesn't hold Mechlala Vata Shemayahin? That's only if it's something that's going to affect Mominus. It's going to answer something. It's going to answer a Chayfetz. But if it's just an Isser, there we don't have the rule of Mechalav. We don't have the rule that you don't say Mechalav Vata Shemayahin, and therefore for Shavuos we could rely on the expression of Mechalav Vata Shemayahin. So as you can see, we're getting more and more offside because our Ran's about to turn over to Amud. Yet the Gemara, we're nowhere near that. So we're going to be spinning back and forth. I think we do pass like there, yeah. I think we had it before. Yeah. So let's see the Gemara. The Gemara says, Shvua loy oichalach, or ha-shvua sh'oichalach, are both isurim. Mechlal, the ha-shvua sh'oichalach. When someone says shvua sh'oichalach, what does he mean to say? What he really means to say is the loy achel namashim. So when you swear that I'm going to eat, what you really mean is you're not going to eat. Urimini, I'm going to show you that when you say shvua da'achelna, it means that you are going to eat, not that you're not going to eat. Urimini, shvua shtayim shein arba she'oichel v'sheloy oichel she'achalti v'sheloy achalti. Mitika amar that sheloy oichel she'achalti v'sheloy achalti or she'oichel v'sheloy achalti she'achalti v'sheloy achalti. You clearly see that when you say I'm going to eat, it's a shvua later. When you say that I'm not going to eat, it's a shvua lahara. Michlal de she'oichalach da'achil namash. So in our Mishnah, when you said shvua, ha-shvua she'oichalach, we said it means you're not going to eat. Yet we have a raya that when you say shvua she'oichal, it means you are going to eat. Amar Abaye, the teretz is she'oichal shtei l'shonish mashma. You have to look at the context of how someone is expressing something, and based on the context, you'll see that she'oichal can go in both directions. Hayu misavim by lechel. What if someone was a guest and they were telling him, eat, how come you're not eating? I'm going to eat, calm down, don't worry, I'm going to eat. I swear I'm going to eat. So there's the achilna mashma. Clearly, he means to eat. But what happens is, but if he says, I'm not going to eat, V'su Omar, and then he said, I'm swearing about my eating. So then it's loyachel nakamar, because in the context he's been trying to say that he doesn't want to eat. So therefore, shvu sh'oichel, you have to actually look at the context of how he said it, and that will determine if it's the shvua to eat or if it's the shvua not to eat. What's the time frame on the conversation? Oh, how long is he not going to eat for? I guess he's speaking about they're serving him a meal. It's that meal. That meal he's not going to eat. Maybe he'll eat somewhere else.
Why here?
Before I discuss that, I want to do the Rad because the Rad will make things clear. Zok Gemara Mani Masnis Reb Meiri, so Shani Le Karban, Shani Le Kikarban. So the Rad here is going back on the Gemara before the last Mishnah. I should have learned this earlier. Mani masnisin are married, the loishani lay carbon, the loishani lay kick carbon, the loy boy chafadim. He doesn't need chafadim. The Rabbi Yehuda, if you want to claim that the earlier Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, ma'ir your carbon loy oichalach the shari, I feel the carbon sha'oichalach nami shari. Any expression would be mutter if there was no chafadim. Hadamer li carbon, hadamer la carbon. Belamet shivayis mashma le carbon yeh, and it'll be also contra mayor. Avala carbon belamet psupa mashma loy carbon. Let's look now. So now we're in Gemara on Amud Aleph, but in the Ran we're on Amud Beis. Michlal zokt heilige Ran the shoichel the achil mashma the nakot lav vehein. The Mishnah Shavuos is telling us that there are some Shavuos that mean you are going to eat, and there are some Shavuos that mean you aren't going to eat. So Zokt Abaye, it depends on the context. How you besarben by lechel v'oimer achil nachil? I'm going to eat. Don't worry. The suamer shavuos shoichel. There, from the context, you see that he's planning to eat. But from high lishna mashma, from his lashon it's mashma. The chihechi the tzarech. I'm sorry. From the Gemara's expression here, it's mashma. The chihechi the tzarech haichacha loymar disha oichel the loyachil namashma. The same way you would need a raya in order to interpret his Shvua sha'oichel as meaning that I'm not going to eat. You need to have a raya from the context that right before he said he's not eating. Hachanami tzarech haichacha disha oichel achil namash. You'll also need a haichacha. You don't say sha'oichel stam for sure means achilna. You also need the context to prove that was his intention. Uberesh perk shvush time brasra will come to the Abaye Gufei, where the Gemara quotes this same kasha, the same kasha that the Gemara asks here from the Mishnah in Shavuos. The Gemara in Shavuos asks from our Mishnah, and Abaye says the same teretz over there. And the way Abaye expresses his teretz over there, loy mashmachi, it's mashma el destama beloy shemeichacha is shaychol dachil mashma. The default is when you say Shavuos shaychol, we're going to assume it means dachil mashma. Only if you have a ride that it means that you're not going to eat, do you say you're not going to eat. Uchvar chasavti sham, I already said, shazumina sugyas hamischalfos. These is one of the examples in Shas where you find the Gemara takes a different position in one place as it took in the other place. Chasavti sham gamkein the sugyad hasam adifetfei. I also wrote that I like that shot better. That stam achilna without any achacha means I'm going to eat, unless you have a mafor sharaya from the context that his intention wasn't to eat. And I want you to point out where you see that from Abaye. Abaye says, "She'oichel shtei l'shoinish mashma," and he goes both ways. If it went this way, then it means lechol. If it went that way, it means shaloichel. So you see, Abaye is saying in either case you need context. In the Gemara in Shavuos, it just says you only need context if it means shaloichel. So that's why the Ran sees the difference of Meshmoyis from the two different sugyas. That's Abaye's teretz. But Rabashi had a simpler teretz.
If you use a chacha, it means the opposite.
Correct. Rabashi said, "She'oichel the shvua." When he said shvua she'oichel, he like stuttered. He said she'oichel. So she'oichel Amar. He said that I won't eat, and that's why it means he won't eat, because that's what he said. She'oichel. Correct the Gemara. Im came pshita. My lememra. If he said she'oichel, those pashas, that's what he said. Dr. Mamau the Tema make him lishna who the iskalei. Maybe he meant she'oichel, but he was stuttering, so he said she'oichel. Kamash Malon. That's what he said, and it means she'loi oichel. So let's see the Ran how he describes this. Okay, Zok the Heilige Ran. The Omer before here me'akem lishnei who. Kloimar sheherich ba'alef. When he said she'oichel, he started on she'oichel. So it's that v'nira ka'omer she'oichel. It sounds like he's swearing that he's not going to eat. V'seisek adai chanachi l'vishein derech b'nei adam loimer she'oichel ela she'loichel. Since normally a person says she'loichel, it doesn't say she'oichel. That's why. That's why there's such a havamina. That's why there's a chiddush that. Since he should have said shaloyachol, he said she'iyachol, you might think he just started, he made a mistake. Kamash no, that's his neder she'iyachol, because he said along iyachol. Abaye loy omar tam karabashi. Why didn't Abaye learn karabashi? Zok to Gemara, the loy katani she'iyachol, because it doesn't say that. It says she'iyachol. You're saying that the she'iyachol was with a stretched out aleph mehechates. Rabbi Ashi Nadim in Tam da Abaye. Why didn't Rabbi Ashi like Abaye's svara? Because he says it goes both ways. Then the same way you could say that the sha'oichel is impacted by context, I can tell you that the shaloichel is impacted by context. So then then you don't know what anything means anymore. And this is what he says. Kasaber shaloichel nami mashma shtei l'shaynais. The same way you, Abaye, are saying sha'oichel could not be interpreted both ways, I can make the same argument if he said shaloichel. Because how you masayvim by lechel? What if they were also pushing him to eat? The Amar lo yachilna, the Amar nami shvua bein she'oichel bein shelo yochel. Whether he said I'm going to eat or not going to eat, hadei nachilna mashma. I could say that he meant to say I'm going to eat, and the Ram explains that when he said shelo yochel, he was saying a bit me out. What do you think I'm not going to eat? What do you think I'm not going to eat? I'm telling you I'm going to eat. So this. Or he could say, or if it's shvua shaloichel, he says, "What do you think? I made a shvua. I'm not going to eat. Avad I'm going to eat." So the balt, because of the context and his tone, I can change it around. Therefore, there's no right. And therefore, v'ikad l'trusa nami lishna shvua shaloichel could mean shvua loichel nakamar. So since anything could mean anything, depending on the context, the Chachamim said that we have to give you hard and fast rules so there shouldn't be confusion. Elatana pascha. Sha'oichel means dachil mashma, v'shaloi oichel is loy oichel mashma. Okay, and therefore in our Mishnah, the reason why it means loy oichel is because he said oichel. He stretched it out, and we say it means she'i oichel. Let's see how the Ran explains it. The Ran says beautiful. The Ran says the Amar Shvua shelo oichel dachil mashma. So the Ran says a twist. Lav remember, I wouldn't necessarily say that when he said Shvua shelo oichel, it actually means a shvua that he is going to eat. I'm just saying that it's not a riot that he's swearing that he's not going to eat. This is what he said. Did I swear to you? You're pushing me so much to eat as if you're concerned that I'm not going to eat. Don't worry, I'm going to eat. I didn't swear that I wasn't going to eat. But like I told you I was going to eat. Well, the Indian halacha, kvar kasabti beperek shvu shtayim basra. So Rambam's al pasuk Abaye. The Rambam pasuk the Abaye that all depends on the context. Uchasugi the hasam like the sugi over there. The harakli shom b'tayim shaldover b'shat d'shmaya. Aval Ramban's al my Rebbe. The Ramban's up there on pasuk Rab Ashi. The la'olam sha'oichel da'achil mashma v'shaloi oichel mashma. Beautiful. Let's see the Gemara weiter. Zeh chomer b'shvuos b'nedarim. V'chomer b'nedarim b'shvuos. So Zechayer b'Shavuos Nedarim, which is what we just said, that Shavuos are chal on the davar shein by mamish, but Nedarim are not. And now let's discuss the Chaymer b'Nedarim b'Shavuos. Let's show you where Neder also has a Chumra over Shvua. Ketzad Amar Koinim Sukkah Shani Oisem, Lulav Shani Noitel, Tvil Shani Meniach, b'Nedarim Aser, because you're answering the Chavtza, and then the mele you can't do the mitzvah. But by Shavuos mutter, your Shavuos is not a good Shavuot because you're swearing, I will not do the mitzvah of Sukkah. I will not do the mitzvah of Tefillin, and you catch Einish boy in laver al mitzvahs. You cannot make a Shavuot to be over on the mitzvahs, and we're going to soon see why. But a Neder, you could make a Neder even though the Neder is going to cause you to be mevatel a mitzvah. Okay, let's see the Heilige Gemara. Zok to Gemara. Chaymer mechal the Neder. If it says in this last thing that this is a place where a shvua is more chomer than a neder, meaning that it was at least a neder. The problem is we said that if you make a neder and a davar shein by mamish, it's completely mutter. It's not a neder at all. So what do you mean? Let's say it's going on the seifa of the earlier case. It says shvua she'eni yasham. If you made a shvua that you won't sleep. She'eni medaber, that you won't speak. She'eni mahalach, oser. Zeh chomer b'shvuos b'nedarim. So let's see the Heilige around. Mechlal the Neder, midekatani the shvu chamur mineder. Since the Mishnah is saying that the shvu is more chomer than the Neder, but vice versa, there's a Neder here. It's just not as chomer. Mashu the Neder number iki yisura al lechomer kishvu. But mutekatani the tan loy oichalach mutter. Oh, so the last case was loy oichalach, and we said it's mutter. So that's not a good example of where there's a neder, but it's not as chomer as the shvua. And for the Gemara, it's going al seifo de idich. It's going on the earlier Mishnah where it says Shvua she'eni yoshan she'eni medaber she'eni malach is aser. Uvaha shayich l'meimar chomer b'shvuas min nedarim. There you could say chomer because by a neder there would be an iser also. When you swear in the davar she'en by mamish, it's not a good neder. True, but in the nedarim you have midrabanu churavina. There we said that if you said shvu sheni yoshan, shvu sheni oichel, those shvuas. I'm sorry, if you made a neder masheni oichel, neder masheni yoshan, we said although it's not also midiraisa, but the Ravina said it's also midirabanan. El the shvu chamur neder, the also midiraisa. But if you made a shvu in the same fashion, it would be a isur deraisa. V'nokat la hashas lahai peruka aliva de Ravina. You see, Ravina was only one pshat in the Gemara. We had another pshat in that Mishnah where it was the Shvuah, where it was a neder latna. You remember the first pshat we said that it's a neder that if I sleep today, I won't sleep tomorrow, and it was a proper neder. So we had two pshatim in the Gemara. We had two pshatim in the Gemara of our Mishnah. One was Ravina that it's only an issue derabanan, and one was that it's an issue deraisa. But from our Gemara, you see the fact that the Gemara interprets that Mishnah as a neder derabanan. You see that our Gemara holds like Ravina. So v'noken la'shas lai peruka libid Ravina mishum the kushta the milsa kavasei, because we happen to paskin like Ravina the bal yachel the masnisin the rabbanon kamar, that when it says in the Mishnah in those cases that you're ever bal yachel, it means the rabban. V'odle the kin nami kabichomer v'nedarim mi b'shvuas machlal the shvu mi ika mi isa. How come the Gemara doesn't ask the kasha the opposite way? Mishum the einachanami the isa. Because even the kasha was if you swear levatlas hamitzvah, it's not a shvu at all. So how come the Gemara doesn't ask? How can you say it's chaymer b'nedarim b'shvua, but there's no isser at all for the shvua? Zok the Gemara because the isa v'loki ba mishum shvua shav. Because when you swear levatlas hamitzvah, since the shvua is not chal, you get petch al shvua shav. But there is still a punishment for making such a shvua shav. And therefore, we don't have a problem of chaymer b'nedarim b'shvua, because in fact there is a shvua, but it's not a shvam. Zok to Gemara weiter. Chaymer b'nedarim b'shvua is keta. Rav Kana masni amar Rav Gidol amar Rav. Rav Tavyumi masni amar Rav Gidol amar Shmuel. So the question is, who did Rav Gidol say this over, in whose name? In Rav's name or in Shmuel's name? And this is what he said. Minayin she'ein yishboin laver ala mitzvahs. How do you know that you cannot make a shvua to violate a mitzvah? Talmud Leimer. Lo yachel devaroi. You shouldn't be mechel a personal thing that's not involved in the Torah. Devaroi lo yachel. Avol mechel hu lechefte shemayim. But if you're dealing with chefte shemayim already, then your words don't have an impact. Let's see the Ran. I believe the Ran comments on this. Avol mechel hu lechefte shemayim. Yesh b'shuvuosoi bitol chefte shemayim. Then mechel shuvuosoi. Then the shvua does become choil. He could violate it, because the shvua is not chal to be mevatel a mitzvah. Zok to Gemara weiter. Ma'ishna neder dichsev ish ki yider neder l'Hashem lo yachal devaroi shvua nami haksev yishava shvua l'Hashem lo yachal devaroi. Why is there a difference between neder and shvua? Either way, there should be a problem. So l'Hashem lo yachal devaroi afilu yesh benidrei bitol mitzvahs Hashem lo yachal. By neder we learn that even if there is a neder l'Hashem, it's still a yachal devaroi, even if it violates a mitzvah. It's the same pasuk. Yishav shvu and yida yeder is the same pasuk. Why do we say by neder you could make a neder levatlas a mitzvah, but not a shvua? Amar Abaye, it makes a big difference as to how it's expressed. Had amar na sukkah alai. If you say the hanav the sukkah should be asur on me, there I'm not directly making a shvua not to do a mitzvah. I'm asking myself to have a no from the sukkah. So because of that, I can't do it. Had amar shvua shlo yehenim na sukkah, and that's where there'll be a problem. Amar Rava, so Rava asked, "V'chi mitzvahs lehenis nitnu." Are mitzvahs to have a no from, like the Ran asked earlier on Tashmish? But here it's a good kasha, because here it's just a mitzvah of sukkah, and it's not called having a no. So if you made a shvu shlo yehenim na sukkah, why does that prevent you from sitting in the sukkah? Mitzvahs are not called a no, so you should be allowed to sit in the sukkah anyway. Amar Rava, hadamar yeshiva sukkah alai, hadamar shvu shlo eshev b'sukkah. When you make a shvu shlo eshev b'sukkah, it doesn't matter if you have a no from it or not. The isur is to sit in the sukkah, but mashayka my neder it would be chal. Let's see the Ran. Zok the Heilig Gemara. Where is our Ran? Ha the Amar, Ha the Amar Hana Sukkah Alai, Ha the Amar Shvua Shal Edim Sukkah Kloimer Svarahu the Lashem Loi Kaya Shvua. The Lashem where you could be mevatel mitzvah is not referring to Shvua. Ela achiyida neder. Why? Mishum the neder bedinu sheyachol al dvar mitzvah. Neder, the Svara tells us that it should be chal on the dvar mitzvah. Levishu oiser al atzmai hanoas sukkah. He's answering the sukkah on himself. Shaloshin neder kachu. Once neder works, ve'machila nesa adam davar aserloi, like we said from Rav Kahana. Avaloshin Shvua, that's directly opposing a mitzvah. Hainu shelo eshe b'sukkah. Uloi kal heimenu lafkia atzmai. It's a sukkah. Shumutzilua. He can't just do away with a mitzvah. Amar Rabba v'chemitzvah lehedis nitnu. Rabba lava tamid abayim maksha. His kasha has nothing to do with abayim. He's just asking, why is there a problem with making the shvua that you won't have enough from the sukkah? What's the difference? Mitzvah lava hedis nitnu. The Vad Shabbat Kamer al Lishnei the Amar no sukkah la yoshiva. Yeshiva shal mitzvah, the mitzvah of the hand. Rabbi is just making a point that if you made a shvur that it will not have enough in the sukkah, you're still allowed to sit in the sukkah. You're still allowed to do the mitzvah sukkah. Alam Rabba, hadamar yeshiva sukkah alai, hadamar shalo yeshiva sukkah. The imtaimer fragt ran v'chi amar yeshiva sukkah alai mahava hadavar shein mamishu. What do you mean the yeshiva of sukkah should be also on me? That's a davar shein mamish. How is another chal? Ishloim d'achba ma'iskinam. The sukkah should be usher to me, in which respect that I shouldn't be able to sit in it. Rabba was just focusing on the hana problem that he had, that mitzvah lav lehedes nitnu damar abayi. You had to have been focused on the sukkah itself, because another can only be chal on the chayvus. But the Ran telling us that Tosfos argues, and he holds afilu amar koinim yeshiva sukkah alai mahami the loy mikri davar shein beimamish ela b'sheini masker shein machebetz shosar. Tosfos says if you say that yeshiva sukkah should be osar on me, that's called a neder on the chayvitz. The neder is on the yeshiva, which is davar shein beimamish, not on the sukkah. As long as you mention an object, it's good enough. Kagoyin chani yosha and chani medaber. If you just mention the chayvitz that's becoming osar. Davar sheish b'mamishu, it's considered a davar sheish b'mamish. We're already moving. We're already getting too late. So I'm going to stop here. I just want to learn the last little line that the Gemara asks. Zok to Gemara. V'shein nishbayin lavar lemitzvus mehachan afkalei. Are you telling me from this lo yachal devoroi? This is the makar where you cannot make a shvua to be mevatel mitzvah. Mehazim nafkalei. We actually have another pasuk that teaches us that you cannot swear to be mevatel mitzvah. The Tanya Yachal Nishbal Levatel Mitzvah V'loy Bitel. If you swore, you'll be Levatel the mitzvah, and you weren't. Yachal Yechai. You might think that your shvua was chal, and you're chai for not fulfilling your shvua. Talmud Loymar Lahara Oyla Heitiv. When you make a shvua, the shvua's bita was lahara to do something bad to yourself, like not to eat. Oyla Heitiv or to eat. Ma tov rishus. Just like the tava that you were going to do was rishus, something that you're allowed to do, because you have haral rishus. So too, when you're saying I'm not going to do something, it's also rishus, meaning it's something that you don't have to do. This excludes from the parasha of Shvua if someone swears not to do a mitzvah, because he doesn't have a right to swear not to do a mitzvah. Zoktamar, you're right. This pasuk of Lahar Lahetev is speaking about the carbon Shvua. From here you see that if you swore levatlas a mitzvah, you don't have to bring a carbon. So lemitrim carbon shvua, v'chad lemitrim in lav the shvua, and loyachal devara is to tell you that there is no lav as well for the shvua. So you need two pesukim, one for the lav and one for the carbon. Okay, we will stop here and we'll be mamsheh tomorrow.
But when I said when somebody makes a neder that he will not